I've been stuck in my bedroom for the past 3 days. What I'm about to tell you will sound crazy, but I need your help, so please read. 3 days ago, my parents and my older brother went to my cousin's wedding. Me and my brother aren't very fond of parties or of my extended family, but since he's the elder son, my parents always dragged him along to family reunions. To endure these ordeals, he always takes his earbuds with him. Since we moved to our current home about 10 years ago, things always went missing out of the blue. A key, a toy car, the TV controller, and there was no point in looking for the missing objects. We could search all over the house and never find them. Nowadays, when something goes missing, my father will say, "Forget it, and it will find its way back to you." And every time, without fail, he was correct. Because after a couple days, or weeks, sometimes entire months, the missing item would be found in an incredibly obvious location. Me and my family figured this was a normal occurrence, easily explained by healthy faults in our own memories and so on, so we get used to it and live normal lives. On that fateful day, my brother could not find his earbud, so I said the words that our father had imprinted into our brains. "Forget it, and it will find its way back to you." He nodded in agreement and said, "Hopefully it'll show up soon." My father and my mother were already waiting for him in the car. I said my farewells from the front door, and they left. I wish they didn't. I had spent that entire day reading Blood Meriden. In fact, I carried the book with me to the front porch, and as I was going back, I left the book on the dining table to the right of the hallway that leads to my room. I sat down on my office chair and booted up my PC. I spent the rest of the evening playing video games. It was around 9 p.m. when I heard it. Coming from the end of the hallway, the sound of a hardcover book hitting the wood floor. I figured it was my book. I must have left it in some awkward position on the table. I got up and opened the door of my bedroom. Then I saw it. A person, a creature, something about half my size, just finishing a small jump from the right of the hallway to the left. The book laid in the right, at the front of the dining table. I was immediately paralyzed. I just stood there, like a deer in front of headlights. A pitch black hand with elongated, clawed fingers reached from the edge of the wall all the way to the other side of the hallway, grabbed the book, and quickly went into hiding. Slowly, the dark figure put its head out of the edge, and for a split second, our eyes met. My heart was beating out of control. I was on the verge of puking as I hastily closed and locked my bedroom door. I heard footsteps approaching me. I broke down crying in a corner. It's been 3 days. No one is picking up my calls. No one is answering my messages. My family has not returned. I hear inhuman sounds just outside my room. I see shadows moving, creeping in and out of what I hope is a familiar hallway. I'm too scared to look out the window. I'm thirsty and hungry. I'm not sure that this text will reach anyone, but I'm desperate. Please, please find me. My fire alarm moves at night, and I can't sleep. I'm a 32-year-old male, and I've been living in my apartment for a few years. The building is an old Victorian house in New England that has been renovated into a duplex. My upstairs apartment is empty, and I live alone on the first floor. I suffer from severe insomnia. As I'm writing this, it's 10 in the morning. I'm at a complete loss at how to explain all this. Last night, I experienced true hell. I'm still frozen in shock and fear. Please tell me I'm not losing my mind. 3 nights ago, my bedroom fire alarm started moving. I'm aware this is a small thing, and with my insomnia, it could easily be explained away as a hallucination. As soon as I shut the lights out, I find myself staring at this tiny green flashing thing on my ceiling by the bedroom door. One blink every 10 seconds. Blink, blink. The light was suddenly 5 feet to the left. Another, and the light moved again. I turned my bedside lamp on, thinking I may have a firefly playing tricks on me. The alarm was in its rightful home, and there wasn't another light source in sight. I continued testing this theory, timing the light flickers in the pitch black. The light would flash, then flash again several feet away. At one point, there were 2 flashing lights nearly 10 feet apart. As morning came, my alarm went off. I was exhausted. I inspected the fire alarm closely. It was an older model with no real visible markings. The light blinked innocently every 10 seconds, just as it should. I dragged myself to work and wrote it off as a hallucination brought on by my insomnia. That afternoon, after work and dinner, I passed out on my couch from exhaustion. Sleep finally came, and I woke up around 10 p.m. in a complete daze. The apartment was dark and silent as I made my way to my bed. As soon as I opened the door, 2 green lights flickered brightly beneath my bed. I jumped back and turned on the bedroom light. My paranoia was getting out of hand at this point. There was nothing under my bed, and the fire alarm above the door flashed in its usual pattern. I crawled into bed, turned the lights off, and tried to sleep. That's when the noise started. The alarm let off a sudden, shrill beep. In my anxious, exhausted state, I quickly sat up to look at the alarm. The light was red. I knew I needed to call maintenance the next day, as I was not allowed to replace the batteries on my own. I spent the night with my ears covered by my pillow, trying to ignore the shrill, intermittent beep. As I waited for the sun to rise, I began noticing a bright flash accompanying the beep, far too bright to be from a tiny source like the alarm. I felt chills begin creeping on my back. I opened my eyes. The alarm light was gone. High up near the top of the doorway were 2 laser red dots, 6 inches apart. The lights moved slowly through the threshold of my open door, never blinking. I unfroze myself and quickly turned my lamp on. My bedroom door slammed with such force the entire room shook. My body was frozen in fear. I took a deep breath. I'm losing it, I thought. Everything was in its rightful place. The bedroom door was eventually slightly ajar, as I had left it. I cautiously scoured the house for intruders, gripping a pocket knife until my hand was numb. Nothing at all, other than the low battery beep of the fire alarm in the background. I needed to call maintenance, first thing. I laid back down and turned off the light. The red light flashed normally, and the beeping felt almost like a familiar rhythm. I was terrified, but I slept. I woke feeling anxious. The fire alarm light was back to green, and the beeping finally had stopped. I called maintenance right away, and I told them I had a fire alarm acting up. The guy on the other end paused and asked if I was sure. I repeated myself, and he stayed silent for a moment before saying that they would need to send someone first thing the next day. My heart sank. I needed reassurance, and I didn't know how I could live through another night. Work dragged on. My body ached with tension, and my eyes were ready to burst. When I finally made it home, I decided to sleep on the couch for the night. Around 9 p.m. began the worst nightmare of my entire life. As soon as the sun set and darkness had filled my apartment, the beep came back. This time it was louder and far more shrill. I was right on the verge of sleep when I heard my bedroom door creak open in the distance. I shot awake, frantically looking for my phone to get a light. I turned to look towards my bedroom. 2 bright lights were floating down my hallway, unblinking and seething. The beep became louder as lights moved like eyes on a massive body moving towards the couch. I scrambled to the floor as the beeping intensified. Frantically crawling into the pitch black, I spotted an orange glow from the kitchen. Using this light as guidance, I ran into the kitchen. What I saw shook me to my core. The room was ablaze in a tornado of fire coming from the old pantry area. The blinding heat sent me reeling back towards the front door. I glanced back to see 2 green lights floating 6 inches apart above my couch as the entire empty building was engulfed in flames. As I'm now writing this at 10 a.m., I'm outside with the fire department and police. The fire is out, and they're chatting nearby about how old faulty electrical work was the culprit. I listened in as the fire chief approached the building landlord and began berating him. I froze solid when he said this. In all my years, I've never seen neglectance this bad. There wasn't a single fire alarm installed in the whole damn place. You're lucky the fire alone woke him up. There's something my girlfriend doesn't want me to see. Cassie and I have been dating for 5 months. Only lately, it has occurred to me I can't recall a single time we've spent together during the day. We met on Hinge. Her profile picture had her crouched outside a stone church after what looked like a night out drinking. Her skin was porcelain white, and she had sharp, cat-like eyes that seemed to stare straight through the screen. I started hundreds of chats that went nowhere, so when Cassie asked if I wanted to go to dinner, I said yes, without hesitation. We met at the bar and quickly acquainted ourselves with the liquor menu. Her smile widened with each glass of champagne. I ordered crab ragout. She ordered a large ribeye. Cassie was a self-certified carnivore and had red meat for almost every meal. The steak was cooked on the rare side of medium rare, and when she sawed into it, fat spots of blood sweated on her plate. It spread until the whole plate was pink. She dragged a fork full of mashed potatoes through it like she was painting, then licked each tine clean individually. It made me queasy to watch. I'd even asked her if she wanted me to send it back to the kitchen for a few more minutes on the grill, but she told me not to worry. She preferred it that way. After that first dinner, there were many more as we tried different restaurants around the city. Her shift work was from morning to evening, and she seemed to work every day, so we'd meet at night, mostly out of convenience. Looking back, I can't remember her ever talking about what she actually does at work. Some nights when we were out late, she'd stay at mine. I always slept with the blinds open as I liked waking to the sunlight, but when Cassie stayed, I'd wake up in the dark with my 6 o'clock alarm screaming at me from the side table. The blinds would be cinched together with safety pins. When I asked about her, she just scolded me. Do you have any idea how much it hurts? Where the sun touched her, a thin strip down her left cheek. The skin was red like sunburn. Outside of that, it was almost perfect. I never noticed how strange things were until she moved in with me. It wasn't a permanent change. Cassie's apartment was built below ground level, and after days of heavy rain, water started seeping through the concrete flooring. The whole building smelled like wet cardboard. I did the gentlemanly thing and offered her a place to stay while the damages were repaired. I thought she'd jump at the chance, a trial run for what I hoped would end with us living together. But she looked nervous, like she was searching for an excuse. All she did was politely shake her head with a, There were no drastic changes at first. As always, I'd leave for work while Cassie was still stretched out in bed, and I'd come home at night to find her cooking steak, sausages, or pork chops. She usually had me do the shopping, but occasionally she'd make late-night food runs to the grocery store and come back with a bag of something like ground beef. I never really thought about what she did while I wasn't in the apartment. I trusted her enough to know she wasn't going to rob me or snoop through my stuff. It wasn't until I remembered the cameras. I'd set them up years ago for my cat Oscar, so I could record him climbing the cat tower and post a montage of the clips on TikTok. Oscar had suddenly run away a few months back, but the cameras were still there. I just hadn't checked them. So on my lunch break, I logged into the app and tried connecting to the bedroom cam. It still worked. And there she was, Cassie, dead asleep. I remember her specifically telling me how busy she was going to be at work that day due to a new project she had been saddled with. I skimmed the footage back, and for hours she lay, so still I couldn't even tell if she was breathing. The bedroom cam caught a glimpse of the street, and I could see cars passing by, so I knew it wasn't frozen. Cassie hadn't mentioned anything about taking a day off. With how much she'd worked, she'd make it sound like the whole place would collapse without her. When I got home, I asked her how her day was, and all I got was a fine. Throughout the rest of the week, I kept checking the cameras, just here and there to see if she ever left the apartment or even got out of the bed. But no, she literally never left. Every day, she didn't move until 5 p.m., just as it was getting dark. She'd pull back the covers, stiffly rise, and then head to the kitchen to start cooking our dinner. She isn't freeloading. She's been paying for all my groceries as a thank you for letting her crash here. Maybe she's rich. Maybe she's won the lottery. Maybe she just doesn't trust me enough yet to explain. Last night, I accidentally grabbed the plant-based burger patty instead of the real thing. She sniffed it once and slid the plate back towards me, saying she wasn't hungry. Hours later, I woke to the sound of the mattress shifting and then the fridge door sucking open. After a moment, the door clicked shut, and I heard the low crinkle of plastic. That's when I realized she was elbow deep in the bin, digging for the leftover meat I'd thrown away days ago. She hasn't mentioned a word of this to me. Whenever I try to ask her about it, she shifts the conversation to a completely different topic. All I want to ask her is why I can smell the scraps of meat she'd missed in the trash, and why does the thought of sucking them clean make my mouth water?